everyone. It's really nice to see so many people from the region and from all over the world. My name is Daria and I have worked for a year and a half at the Ministry of Finance, and I'm going to tell you about this experience today. But save for that, I have an experience in digital research, in working in media production, in documentary production. So I've been and I am on both sides of the barricades, because sometimes, especially in Ukraine, government is seen as something distant from the civil society, distant from media, distant from business. And that's actually the reason why I decided to participate in a quite an ambitious project of creating from the scratch the press service for the Ministry of Finance. Yes, there was a press service before, but it was very, very outdated. It was not citizen-friendly, and it was quite, red tape and bureaucratic. So in summer of 2016, I joined the team of the new minister, and I was working as a consultant, so I was not on the civil service, but it was still a full immersion in the governmental activities, and it was a very, very unusual experience for me because I never worked with the government, and I didn't know how it works. I didn't know how bad or how good it is, to be involved in the very complicated and full-scale processes in a country that is going through the very hard times, being immersed in a conflict, in a war conflict for more than 4 years now, having the developing civil society, which is very, I would say, in comparison to the overall population of Ukraine, we have quite a small civil society and it's still developing, and there are so many challenges and so many topics which civil society and media are working on, that it's, we have the everyday challenges to face, and we have the everyday work to do in all the spheres. So my topic of presentations are the crisis communications, and especially the government crisis communications. What's important, I think, I have to say something about this, what I'm going to tell about this presentation is that it's not a straight-faced presentation. It's not something that you would, there are no data or infographics that you will learn from. It's sharing my experience, my observations of working for some time in the government in Ukraine.
First large button.
Okay. So in Ukraine, all government communications are crisis communications. That's for sure. So every day we've been facing immense pressure from the opposition forces that were opposing the reforms, and we were introducing the fiscal reform, the tax reform, the government bank reforms, the budget reform. So basically we were trying to disrupt the whole red tape system and to actually take down the corrupt forces that had their tentacles all over the government and all over the business. And so every situation we were drafting a crisis communication plan. We knew that every communication plan is a crisis communication plan, because every decision that was introduced, it was not in course, it was not populistic, and so it was provoking a huge discussion in the society, and it was provoking a very interesting media landscape, because for your information remark, in Ukraine the largest media are owned by the oligarchs and political powers, the TV channels, the news outlets. So when you're introducing the policies that are not in line with their interests, it always provokes a huge attack. So we knew that crisis government communication is always political. So even if you're introducing the governmental decision that is technocratic, it becomes political right in the few moments after you introduce it, after a press briefing, a press release, press service, whatever. So what was important to understand is that if you're working in a hectic environment of the developing government, you cannot solve you cannot solve the crisis in state leadership, for example. If you develop a huge idea of establishing a new system of governmental state-owned banks, it doesn't. Something could happen just before you present it, you implement it, and it could change the direction, and the government leadership could change the decision, and you have to be always ready to understand that this decision is political. And even though for example, my background is from media and from civil society, it was hard to me to understand that government decisions cannot be just influenced by me. I'm working in the press service, I'm building up the press service, but I cannot change the government. Just like that, I cannot just, what I can do is to establish a new transparent service that would lead to further changes, that would facilitate the transparency, in the government oncoming. So it was important to understand that we had to work on specific things and to create the foundation for the changes in the future, because 2 years is a big period of time for the person, but for the government and for the state, it's just, a very small step in developing. So what I learned from this day-to-day challenges is that there always has to be a plan, and this plan is a communication plan. Because even if you don't use it, I know how it works. You create a plan, you don't really use it, you have different day-to-day events that are changing your plans. But still, if you're in a crisis, I'm just gonna mention an example. In the winter of 2016, there was a huge ambition and a decision to nationalize the largest private-owned bank in Ukraine, which was called Privatbank. It was nearly failing. It had a huge debt around few billion dollars, and the reason why it was failing was that it was owned by 2 oligarchs, and they had the huge corrupt schemes to provide their clients and their allied businesses with private loans. So this bank was on the brink of collapse, and that would just destroy the Ukrainian economy because of its largest bank. And so we were facilitating and making a media plan and communication on actually the private bank nationalization. Basically, we were working with every citizen in the country, because in Ukraine, almost every citizen has a credit card of Privatbank. And this decision would influence everyone, and it was very interesting times when we had a communication plan. We didn't really use it, but it was the only thing that actually, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to the job, or if you work in the night, it doesn't matter, you work 24/7 when there's a crisis, you always know that if you have a plan, it means that you keep working, it means that the world is not collapsing, and so it's a really good thing to have, even if you're in turmoil. The other thing that was among my observations is that you cannot always rely on your instincts. What I mean by that, it's good to listen to your guts. It's very good. It works when you make your own personal life decisions. But when it comes to governmental decisions and how to cover them, how to prevent them, how to present them, basically it's better to rely on teamwork and to establish the teams that can work sustainably towards the result. And if you have a crisis situation and you have a genius idea of, for example, bringing a man dressed in a Spider-Man costume on the press briefing of the minister, you have to be ready that it's not really a good idea, just to impress the press, and this Spider-Man dressed man will be holding posters saying that this is a budget man, he's going to save the budget of this year, of the country. So it's not going to, it could work in different ways that you imagine, so it's always better to have the team around you to advise on what's actually a sane idea, what's an insanity that you're going through because you're in crisis and you're stressed. Then the other thing is that silence can save you time, and it's unexpected. So the previous, can we go to the previous?
Yeah, there's a red button.
Yeah. So you cannot rely on the instincts. And the other thing is important to remember is that silence can save you time. If you have a crisis, then you want to react immediately. If something happened in the government, you want to go on a press briefing, you want to share your opinions, you want to oppose the some other points. But it's important to collect the facts and to be fact-based and to be prepared and collected. And the other thing is that it can get you facts and data on your side, and sometimes we notice that political crises are happening because of the immediate reaction, and when the political leaders were sharing inaccurate information and basically creating more and more nonsense, just spreading all over the country. So it's important just to remember that you can take your time, and anything can happen anytime. That's the other observation that I had, is that whatever you do, whatever you prepare, even if you have the best team on earth, in Ukraine, anything could happen anytime. The next day, the political landscape can change, the government can be changed considerably. It's always important to have the straight face, to keep relaxed and balanced, because everything can change. I just, you know, it's kind of a list of things that actually were changing when we were working. You can end up working on conflicting messages opposing to those that you were developing before, but it's all fine if you have the general guidelines of how to work as a team, and if you understand that your team is strong and it's going to be fine in the end. No one knows when is the end, and there's no end, you know, because you work in the government and everything is developing, but still you have to be ready to react, to brainstorm, to deal with the shifting sands, and avoid panic and frustration. Because these are the emotions that everyone working in government can relate to in different countries of the region. Probably we're talking about Scandinavia, it's different, but in Ukraine, it's day-to-day practice. And just to finish my hectic presentation is that, so I was using this classic art memes because they're really existential and they're quite interesting to relate to when you're talking about serious stuff. So basically, we're just, human body is 60% water, so really we're just cucumbers with anxiety. But we can change things sometimes. So we have this potential to work together and to shift the processes in government and to work using the digital media tools, because everything that I was describing was actually developed and introduced using the media tools, using the social media platforms, using the networking, the communication. So I think that we all know how important it is to be transparent, be inspired, and be united, and to work together in different countries. Thank you.